We've spent the last 5 weeks unpacking our discipleship pathway together. We've read an important tool called The Way of a Disciple several times through, and we've talked a lot about what it means to really follow Jesus in a way that is faithful to Scripture and honest about the complicated nature of faith and life. We've looked at parts and pieces, thought about each one, and considered what each one tells us about the whole. Today we look at the whole and consider what it is to live this thing on a daily basis. I'll share a little example from the ordination process in our United Methodist Church. We preachers go through a lengthy process that includes psychological exams, 3 psychological exams, physicals, drug tests, an analysis of your call to ministry, and the affirmation of your local church, and then 3 years of seminary. When you're ready to start serving in a church, you go before the Board of Ordained Ministry to be questioned regarding your fitness for ministry. You write papers and prepare sermons and Bible studies. It's tough. If you pass, you are commissioned as a provisional elder or deacon. It used to be called probationary. Then you get to serve. 3 years later, you're not ordained yet. 3 years later, you go back before the Board of Ordained Ministry with more papers and sermons and Bible studies, and you are questioned again before becoming eligible for full ordination as a pastor in the United Methodist Church, either elder or deacon. The whole process from start to finish takes 6 to 10, even more years. Those 2 interviews with the Board of Ordained Ministry are crucial and very intense. When I went through, an older pastor explained to me the difference between your first interview with the board and the second one that happened 3 years later. This is what is helpful for our discussion about the way of a disciple. He said, that first interview, they want to hear your call to ministry and see if you have the tools in the toolbox to do the work of ministry. Then he said, at the second interview, after you've served for 3 years, they want to hear if you still have the call and if you now know how to use the tools in your toolbox for the work of ministry. You see, that's kind of what we've done with the way of a disciple so far. We've been talking about the tools in the toolbox of Christian discipleship. Now we're talking about how we actually use those tools in living as followers of Jesus. I'd like for you to think for just a moment about who you know in your world, who you know who exemplifies Christian discipleship as we've been talking about it. I'm not talking about a really religious person. I'm not talking about an overly churchy person, or a person who seems to have it all together, or even somebody who's just a nice person whom you admire. Think about that follower of Jesus who is in the trenches, actively living his or her faith in real ways that show what God's new creation looks like in the here and now. Take a few moments and share with your class or group how you see that person actively using the tools in the toolbox of Christian discipleship. What does that kind of living look like, and what can we learn together from what you share, what you've observed? Take just a few moments and do that.